Hi there and welcome to this video. In this video I'm going to discuss the topic of support and resistance and supply and demand and explain what they are and why they can be different. And then I'll show you quickly how you can mark your charts in order to identify these levels and then draw them using the objects available in the MetaTrader platform. So if we have a look at this chart here, we can see that we're on the daily chart. We can see some lines here, but let's not pay attention to those at the moment. What is interesting to us is stuff like areas like this one here. Let me draw these so they're clear. Areas like this one here, this one here. I'll just draw a few different areas that are interesting to us, and I'll explain why. Right, what I've done here is I've drawn areas of supply and demand. And then people say, like, supply and demand, isn't supply and demand the same as support and resistance? It can be, but it doesn't necessarily have to be. So if you consider the notion of supply and demand like we have here, we have areas like this one here, which I will draw an object on, that looks like this. And this is an area of demand. And this is an area of demand because price managed to break away from this area, and it managed to feed into this area here. And this is kind of a thick area of volume and orders, and price managed to feed into it. And then price retraced as the orders to sell here moved price lower. And then we had this nice price behavior that dipped into this area of demand, and then we moved higher than this previous swing high. So now this tells us that this area here now also becomes demand. So let's mark it off like that. Now we can see here we have two layers of demand over one another. But we still have our previous areas of supply, but these ones are no longer valid. So we'll remove this one and this one, because this area of demand and this area of demand were able to move higher than these two, thus consuming the orders that were available at these two areas here. So area 1 and area 2. And so these two are now no longer existing. And then we had this area of supply just here, which is a lovely area, and it was taken out in turn by this push higher, which originated from this area of demand. And the reason that this is very important to us is because that this area of demand took out this area of supply. And so we want to know where these areas are, because as price comes up, moves through these this order block, comes back down, you can see that there was a nice reaction just at this level here. And so this area was tested once and then twice, and then price continued moving higher here. And so they say that you should only trade the first and perhaps the second test of an order of supply or demand. And you can see that this rule worked very nicely here, because on the first attempt we managed to bounce, on the second we bounced, but on the third we took it out here. And so this area of demand was taken out by this area of supply. So we'll draw this level here. And so what does this tell us? Well, this tells us that this area is interesting and important to us, because like the fact that this area of demand took out this area of supply, when price came down to it to retest it, we had a nice reaction. So we can expect something similar to happen here. So we had this important area of demand was consumed by this area of supply here, and this one. And so we can expect price to react when and if it comes up back up to these levels. And you can see that we are testing this area, the bottom area of demand. We've tested it once, and we've tested the one just above it once, and now price is approaching roughly this area here, which is the top of this area of demand. So we may expect a reaction here. So when price comes down here, then we'll have a rejection. And my anticipation is that price moves up into this area just here and is rejected and will move lower. And if we look at information like you can see here in the dashboard that tells us the areas of the supply and demand that are in control, you can see that on the monthly we are moving. We have areas of demand that are in control, but on the weekly, daily, and the 4 hour and the 1 hour and a half an hour, we have areas of supply that are in control. And we're on the daily here, and rightfully so. We've had prices moved off this little area here and is now moving, and so we have to consume these areas of supply here before the information up here will tell us that we are now going to be in an uptrend. So this is just a quick introduction to supply and demand. Okay, so if you say, if that's supply and demand, then what is support and resistance? Well, support and resistance is different in that I'll just draw some lines of support and resistance here. So we have an area of resistance here. That's a bit of a thick, ugly line. I'll just do it with this drawing tool. We have an area here of resistance. Here we have an area of support. Here we have an area of resistance, support, which is respected. Here we have an area of support here, and ultimately you can consider, very generally stated, that the swing highs, like the major swing highs, are areas of support and resistance. So here we have a nice significant high, so this will likely serve as resistance when price comes up to retest it one day. And we had this low here, which served as support here. And we had this area here, which served as resistance when price was rejected off these lows, and then it moved through it. And now price is approaching this area of support here. And so they are quite different, as you can see. And while they may overlap at the same areas, they are not necessarily levels or areas that are the same. Supply and demand are generally areas, order blocks, and support and resistance are generally levels. So you see this is a level here, so here we have the resistance, and here we have support. But if we want to draw supply and demand, we wouldn't draw it just up here, we would draw it like this, because we would have to have a closer look at price, the behavior of price, when it comes up and forms this high and is rejected. So we like to see a specific price pattern on the approach and on the rejection. So we go into the smaller time frames, maybe all the way down to the 4 hour and even the 1 hour. If you want to fine tune your entry, we'll have a closer look and see what happens here. And based on the information we see in here, then we'll decide if this is an area of supply. Additionally, for this to be an area of supply, it must take out opposing areas of demand, which is where, again, this comes into play. So anyway, so this is an overview of the difference between supply and demand and support and resistance. I hope it was interesting and you find value with it. And if you have any questions about this topic, I would be delighted to hear from you. Thanks you very much for watching.